gonna climb a tree.
Watch out.
Ah!
Hey everybody, Brian Hank from the Forbidden Limb podcast, and you are about to see or hear, depending on how you are consuming this, a panel from the San Jose Protospiel. So at the Protospiel, we had a whole bunch of designers and a whole bunch of gamers go to play prototype games and give feedback on them and make them better. And it was such an amazing experience, organized by my co-host, Jeremy Commander. And at this event, we also had two panels. One of the panels was all about Kickstarter. One of them was all about publishing, but where you can't say Kickstarter. And what you're about to see is the Kickstarter one. And the host for this was, I can't think of anyone better. It was Richard Bliss from Funding the Dream. So if you can imagine, I'm sure if you've listened to his podcast, which I hope you have, you can expect that he kept us on our toes, asked some really good questions, took questions from the audience, and kept us on track. And it was pretty cool to see. We had some good discussions, great questions, and great answers. So that's what you have before you. So here is Richard Bliss.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to Everything About Kickstarter panel. I heard that the panel last night, it didn't make it, went well. So I'm going to try to live up to the standard that's already been set. My name is Richard Bliss. I'm the host of Funding the Dream on Kickstarter, a podcast. And somebody asked me, if I was a game publisher. I'm not. Game designer, I'm not. Work in the game industry, no. Are you pulling my leg, he said. I said, no. What are you doing here, he said. So, I don't know. I got invited. I'm thrilled to be here. Quick introduction. Go ahead and go down and everybody introduce themselves real quick.
I'm Teal Fristo, designer and self-publisher. I've run 3 Kickstarter campaigns that have been successful to release games that I've designed myself.
One's next door, Shadow Throne. I like that game.
One is here, yep.
My name is Jerry Commander. I am what I call a Kickstarter super backer. I've backed about 300 projects on Kickstarter, mostly board games, and my wheel of pie is complete.
This one is great.
Teal's on there. And so I'm here to represent the perspective of the backer, especially the board game backer, who's seen a lot of campaigns come and go. And I just watched Grant's old publishing company go bankrupt on Kickstarter.
I'm Brian Hank with Overworld Games. So we're a newer publisher, but we've done 3 campaigns in about a year, and so they've just kind of progressively, done better and better. We're growing our business and kind of becoming a traditional publisher, but right now we're still based on Kickstarter.
My name's Aldo Giazzi. My company, Impressions, is a game distribution service company, and actually opposite to Jeremy, I have had no Kickstarters and I've backed 0 Kickstarters. But I'm on the fringe of dozens every month due to the involvement that we have with clients like Brian and Teal over there, Steve's back there. We handle the business-to-business back-end distributor and retail sales side, so we do work with a lot of these publishers before the Kickstarter campaigns go up, helping them out.
Thanks, Aldo. Other than Aldo, has anybody else in the room never backed a Kickstarter project? Wow, okay, welcome.
Does Protospiel count?
We'll give you a pass on that one.
That counts. All right, so we got a few. How many of you are here for the very first time? That you've never been to, that you didn't come last year? So how many first timers? Okay, most of you, great. And how many of you are here because you think you want to do a Kickstarter campaign? Okay, good set of hands.
I don't know.
All right, so that's all right. You can put your hand if you don't know. Be decisive there. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about a lot of different things over the next hour about Kickstarter, because there's been a lot of changes even since last year when Protospiel first one was here. Kickstarter is changing, it's evolving. Some of you are new, some of you are looking to do Kickstarter, some of you have done it before. I've got a wide variety of questions here, from some experienced people to some brand new people, so we're going to talk about that. Let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start at that end with Aldo, because it's a little facetious, but why are you here and why haven't you backed a Kickstarter campaign? And I say this is because Aldo and I have known each other for quite a few years, and early on in our relationship, you were pretty adamant against Kickstarter because you felt that the impact it was having on the traditional 3-tier, 4-tier game industry.
Correct. The biggest fear that still goes about today is that retailers and distributors feel that for every backer on Kickstarter for a game is a sale that they're going to lose. Now, of course, there's hundreds and hundreds of stores out there, but if you have now that the snowball has rolled so many Kickstarter projects, you now have a consumer going to a game store probably every day going just once to a retailer, oh, I got that on Kickstarter. So if a retailer starts hearing that every day, which is now occurring, that it's now affecting them. But at the same time, the market has grown so much, Richard. It's still a whole different dynamic.
But you've never backed one of your games, you've never backed a project, you've never backed one of your clients?
No, I was so early part of it, working with my clients that were already existing, that were playing with Kickstarter, that I was just getting their games anyway. I mean, I'm sorry, bluntly, I get every game from everybody. I just got 2 of your games to my house yesterday, so it's like, I'm sorry, I don't have to back a Kickstarter. But even personally, there's just so many games, like, once you start getting to back.
Let me ask the audience, how many of you have backed a Kickstarter project and didn't get a product for it? How many of you backed it at a point where there was no product involved? Okay.
You mean no product delivered?
Right, that you backed a project with no intention whatsoever after.
No intention?
Yeah, that there was no reason.
I picked one where I didn't get it, but I
know, you wanted something, but I'm saying where you backed a project without the intention of you actually getting the product, okay? So, and I bring that up is because although,
$2 thing.
yeah, a $2 thing, $1 thing, so you haven't even gone that far, have you?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm
All right, never mind. Okay, we'll come back to
business stuff.
that. Jeremy, you've backed a ton, so but fortunately, the people like you exist to counterbalance the people like all of them. Okay. So you've backed so many games and projects, and over the last several years, the changes in the industry have been there's so many games out there now. How are you picking them as a backer, and how are you finding them, and what's drawing you in?
Sure. So I used to back a lot of stuff on Kickstarter, and now I'm much more selective.
Because
I've got a lot of junk. I mean, I got a lot of stuff from Kickstarter that I came and I played that game, and it wasn't done. It wasn't ready. They had good marketing, but they didn't have a good game.
we're not talking about one of the traditional publishers out here, right? We're talking about Kickstarter.
Kickstarter games, yeah.
Those traditional publishers do that too. I've bought it, certainly.
Oh yeah, there's lots of terrible presentations.
All right, I'm just making sure that good marketing, good art, good.
But if a traditional publisher publishes it, I have the advantage of being able to read about it on the Geek, and my friends have already played it before I buy a copy, right? Unless I'm pre-ordering it from the publisher, I get an idea if it's a quality game or not. And a Kickstarter, I'm rolling the dice. Often for me, who I'm backing is as important as what I'm backing. And so I will back people that I know or that I think are doing something cool and interesting, even if I'm not so interested in the game, because I want to support that creator.
Okay, that brings up a good point, because Teal, you said 3 games.
That's right.
3 games over how many years?
About 3 years.
So over 3 years, your first one was?
Corporate America.
How many backers on Corporate America?
About 325 or so.
325 people, and then the next one was Shadow Throne?
Shadow Throne.
How many backers?
500.
And then the third one was?
The third one was Birds of a Feather, that just finished.
And how many backers?
About 500.
Okay, so you've got about 500 people who are backing your project. You had a good, nice little bump there, and then it kind of flattened out.
Which isn't surprising given the themes of the games. Shadow Throne is kind of like a Game of Thrones style Machiavellian intrigue, pretty standard.
And Birds of Feathers, is it?
It's about bird watching.
It's all about birds of California and it's beautiful art. If you don't buy it, then you hate your state.
Okay,
it's a great game.
And so funding then, those 3 projects. So 250 backers, 500, 500. What was the funding levels on each one?
20,000, which I got just about 20,000, which is what I was going for.
Did you cheat?
I didn't cheat, but I have very generous friends and family who helped bump me over that.
So somebody helped you cheat?
Yeah.
Okay. They Teal eating Cliff Bars and water for dinner. They're like, man, we got to give him some money.
Okay, so number 2, Shadow Thrones?
Shadow Throne, I asked for 12,500 and I got about 16,000.
Okay.
And for Birds of a Feather, I asked for 9,000 and I got 14,000.
And do you think the momentum, and 4 years ago or 3 years ago when you started, $16,000, $20,000, that was really good.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say I got very lucky to get it.
Right, but today, a $16,000 project, somebody's saying, what'd you do wrong? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was extremely happy with how Birds of a Feather turned out. But at the same time, there were games that were making hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in comparison, mine didn't look like it was doing that well. I'm still proud of it. I think it did pretty well.
You raised 16,000, you said?
That was for Shadow Throne.
And
14,000 for Protospiel.
And is that going to cover your manufacturing costs?
Definitely manufacturing. Shipping, it may not quite get there, but it's going to be real close.
And are you starting to bring in income now from the previous games that you shipped?
Oh yeah, Corporate America sold out, and I've made money from that for sure. Shadow Throne was pretty much break even with the Kickstarter, and now that it's in stores, I've made money on it.
Okay.
You made money in Corporate America?
I did, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I
I'm reading that thing, and it was like, wow, Teal didn't make any money.
Well,
so it was an insignificant amount.
It wasn't a lot. It was like 10,000 maybe.
Okay.
But that was over a long period of time
For
and
three years of work.
A lot of work.
So let's talk to Brian. Brian, because you also have 3 Kickstarter projects.
Yes.
Your first one was
As far as backers and
No.
Good Cop, Bad Cop.
good, and that was when?
That was a year ago.
Okay, and that's in stores now, right?
Yep. In stores now.
And then your second one.
Well, kind of. Yeah. So it's.
Whoa. What does that mean?
You can tell you on the back end business to business side of things for these
The
guys.
first couple of print runs sold out, and then there was a very long period of time when it was not available, and it's now back in stores or will be in.
It's shipping to stores and it'll be in stores.
So the second edition, so the third print run.
The fourth, the Star Wars Day?
Oh, May the 4th. Yeah, May the 4th be with you.
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
Hey, you're going to get all that traffic, people going to the stores.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. To buy Good Cop, Bad Cop, Star Wars.
Right.
So Good Cop, Bad Cop
Yeah.
a year ago. How much?
Yeah.
Okay. And then
350 backers, $6,500.
okay. And that was just that's a basic card game. Well,
Yep.
basic. It's like one of these
54 card
resistance.
Tough
Yeah,
cards.
deduction, hidden identity,
Okay. And your second game?
New Salem, and that was 650 backers and 20,000.
And your third one?
The expansion to Good Cop, Bad Cop, that was 900 backers and 30,000.
Okay, so yours have gone. How many backers in the first one?
350,
Then
650.
and I don't have my glasses on.
Oh, sorry, never mind.
And
My bad.
can you read that?
I can.
Oh, never mind. 350.
Yeah,
Then
650.
650.
And
Then
900.
900.
Yep.
And over what amount of time period have
A
you
year.
in 1 year,
Yeah.
all 3 campaigns?
Yeah. But
So-
one thing that was different between Teal and I is that our games are all hidden identity social games. And so he varied his games mechanically and thematically. And
Pretty
we only did, so that's where we were able to convert a lot of our backers from previous campaigns. to
Brian's
new ones.
building his niche.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's
our
a
niche
question that a
is-
lot of people are going to
yeah.
ask. You are literally launching campaigns like this.
Yeah.
You were even saying that in your head you would like to even launch another one. You're not going to.
Right.
Without shipping product.
Yeah. And part of that was naivety on our part in not knowing all the delays that are possible in getting your art completed, in manufacturing, in shipping, in shipping inbound from China. So there's a lot of delays that now we know a lot of the mistakes that we made, and we can.
Yeah, but okay. So hang
Kickstarter's
on.
get delayed.
Right.
But it's a little hard to say that you had some mistakes when you suddenly had 900 backers. How much money did you raise on the third one?
30,000.
$30,000 for an expansion,
Yep.
900 backers,
Yep.
and you haven't even shipped the previous Kickstarter campaign. It doesn't appear that anybody really cared.
No, we had like one person like kind of bring it up, like, hey, wait a minute, you want us to back a new campaign and you haven't shipped the old one? But I mean, it was early enough in that campaign that people didn't expect us to, and we didn't. Our target date for delivery isn't for another like 3-4 months for New Salem.
Okay, to the audience, does that concern you that you see a project owner launching serial campaigns without necessarily having delivered on the one before that? Does that bother you?
It bothers me. I've not backed candidates before for that reason. Yeah.
But it seems to be 900 people that didn't bother.
True.
Okay, I see several hands have gone up, but there's 900 people out there who are like, okay, why is that? So let's, Jeremy, it bothers you. Why do you think it's not bothering all those other people?
I think Brian was more transparent in his process of where the game was along in the process, and so that people would see that New Salem was basically done and now in the print boat cycle. And so it wasn't like that Brian was, oh, we're still working on that game. No, that game's done. And it's just, it's in the Chinese cycle of waiting. And the second thing was that Good Cop, Bad Cop won Best Small Game of the Year from the Dice Tower. It got tons of buzz, sold out in distribution. And so people were anxious to hop on the bandwagon for the expansion.
How many of you, several of you are thinking of launching a Kickstarter campaign. Has anybody here launched one already and now is launching a second one? Okay, so one. So pretty much anybody who here is thinking of launching one, it's probably the very first campaign that you're going to launch. Okay, one of the challenges that we've talked about is, and this comes up, let's just talk about some numbers real quick. On Kickstarter right now, who's got an idea, a rough number, how many projects are on Kickstarter right now, board game, tabletop games? How many?
2 billion.
No. This month, that I'm running active right now.
That active running is about 1,000. It's
Yeah.
about 1,000.
There's 1,000 right now on Kickstarter?
No, I was going to say like 300.
I think it's 300.
I think about 300 is about right.
That's about 300. So I think
I can tell you.
1,000.
I'll tell you right now.
it's not 1,000.
I'll tell you
Jeremy
right
can
now.
tell
How
us.
do you define them? Is it include all the little side things?
No, what I define is right now, a campaign that's going to end within the next 30 days, that's running on Kickstarter right now, how many active
Tabletop games.
in the tabletop
Which
category.
includes role play.
Yeah.
It does include role play.
But not video games.
Not
Yeah, 2 billion. It's thousands.
No. How many?
I thought it was I thought it was looking around 800 to 1,000. I really did.
No, because usually I just go out to KickTrack, and KickTrack will say usually there's about 300 to 400 active campaigns at a time on tabletop.
Sounds about right.
That's still ridiculous.
So 300 to 400. Here's why it's ridiculous. Fantasy Flight, in the history of their company, how old are they? 20 years?
Oh, no.
30?
10.
No, they're older than 10.
Older than
Disc Wars was back in right before the D20 boom, which was like 1998, 99. So about,
That's not 10 years ago, Waldo.
It's about 15,
yeah.
16.
16. All right, now we're getting closer to 20. Okay, I think that is right.
Crazy.
So my answer 20 was closer than your answer 10.
Yeah.
Okay. 200 games. Fantasy Flight, in the history of their company, has put out 200 games. There's twice as many of those games this month on Kickstarter alone. How many games were released at Essen?
Essen last year I shouldn't use that word, released at the show, people releasing was about 700 plus games that were new releases at the show overall in the industry. That doesn't count Kickstarter, it just counts everything. That doesn't count, let's add to that number. In addition to that, we know that there are companies like Fantasy Flight that don't use Kickstarter, that have regular releases from Asmodee and all these other companies. There are about 300 to 400 releases a month through distribution into retail stores. That includes every miniature SKU, every role-playing supplement, of course. But add all of those together, what do you have?
Now you are up to close to 1,000 games a month are being dumped into the board game industry. These-
What percentage of the releases at Essen, not counting Kickstarter titles, would you say accounts for the overall release from the quote-unquote professional board game manufacturers?
Not a lot. Most of the indie publishers at Essen, they'll just print enough because they want to sell direct at Essen and or to some retailers or distributors, or use that as a jumping platform to get a publisher for the next print run.
Right, but for the publishers, Fantasy Flights and Asmodees and
I don't think
Strongholds,
they-
or whatever,
I don't know.
what percentage do you think of their yearly release is done at Essen?
I don't know. Mostly it's the smaller companies, the medium guys that bank so much on Essen because the cold hard cash up front.
Because the distributors there,
full-blown retail.
publishers are there, yeah.
They bring 150 games and get it full retail for it.
People go to Essen to buy.
Yeah, to buy.
Yeah, okay. The reason I wanted to bring this up, and I realize there's not an Essen every month, but you have hundreds and hundreds of games that are dumping on the market. If you're thinking of launching your Kickstarter campaign right now, the biggest challenge you have is not how you're going to get it manufactured, or where you're going to find the design artwork. It's how are you going to get noticed? How is your project going to get noticed over the hundreds and hundreds of other projects that are out there? And obviously, if Teal's launching a campaign at the same time you are, and if Brian's launching one at the same time you are, these guys already have track records, right? So they've already got people paying attention to them. Almost no one here has a track record. So what kind of advice can we give to somebody who's looking to do Kickstarter? How do you get noticed? Where should we start? Teal, we'll start with you. And we'll just go down. Jeremy and Brian, and then we'll end with all.
I have an answer.
Limit us to 1 minute.
Yeah, Teal, go for it.
Okay, I'll say the most important thing is that you do a lot of the work before the launch button. You can't expect the Kickstarter to bring people in. You have to have a group of people who are excited about what you're doing beforehand. And you get that from coming to things like this, from going to other cons, sending your game out online. We were talking about social media yesterday, creating some buzz there and offering to send your game to people who are interested. If you can find people at the center of social networks that have a lot of influence on their friends and they like your game, they're going to share that and they're going to bring people in for you. But the main thing is you can't wait until you hit that launch button. You really have to do a lot of it beforehand and make sure that the initial rush is enough to take you over the end.
Jeremy?
I'd say something that means a lot to me as a backer is, like Brian wouldn't do cross promotions in his campaign updates because he thought that was cheesy or commercial. I told Brian, no, I value those a great deal. Because if Brian puts in his update, hey, here's where we are in art, here we are in printing, and by the way, this guy No Teal has a game on Kickstarter now that I've played and I think is a good game. That endorsement from Brian notifies me about the game, and that endorsement makes me more likely to back the other game. So for me, that kind of cross-promotion, especially if it's like, oh, I've played this game, it's a great game, or I know this designer, that kind of personal endorsement, that means that what I'm going to get isn't going to be crap. And so that means a lot to me.
Unless there is some type of deal that says, I'll cross-promote your game and you cross-promote mine.
And that's why I read their copy very carefully. Because some guys just do, and I can tell it's a copy and paste blurb, and I'll even get it in more than one update. Because I get like, all the campaigns I backed, I'll get 5 to 20 updates a day. But when someone takes the time to write a personal thing, I know Teal, he looks local, we see the con, I put this game, it's good.
That's a valid point.
And now I'm like, okay, I'm in for this one because that means something.
Because we had one of those questions about the cross-promotion. I personally don't like it.
Yeah.
But I have to recognize the reality, and that is people are doing it. And
There's so much noise on Kickstarter that, I mean, I tried to look at every board game for the first couple of years. Every board game that Kickstarter, I tried to look at their campaign and back a lot of them, and I can't even keep up with it anymore. And so this filters out the noise that I get people, and then if I got a game from Brian, and I know Brian has good taste, and he knows what he's doing, when he says, yeah, check this out, it means something to me.
Sure.
Versus that it filters out the noise.
And just to give you an idea, and then Brian will come to you, in 2011, when I started the podcast, Finding the Dream, there were 100 successful Kickstarter board games in the entire year. They raised $2 million cumulative in 2011. Here we are 4 years later, and
300 a month.
yeah, 300 a month, hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. Okay, Brian, how do you rise above the noise?
Well, so really good points already. Brian here is doing it right, just like what Teal said. He's going to conventions. What's the name of your game?
Cutthroat Kingdoms.
Cutthroat Kingdom. So he's going to conventions. He's getting email addresses of people. You know, that's how you do it. You build a list, and then if you want to do a campaign in the future, then you have that list of people who have played your game and want to play it again. But so that's more just kind of to Teal's point. But what I would say, my advice would be to start small. That's the most important thing, in my opinion, is that a lot of people have their game, kind of their white whale game that they've been working on for a long time, and a lot of times it's a big game. And
you mean like a 2-hour Euro that's
right,
retail for $70?
Yeah,
and it has components?
It's got crazy amounts of components and dice, and yeah. So yeah, so I would say start extremely small. Make a 54 card game like we did with good.
Why make it 50? Why?
Because it's so cheap. Our fundamental
why is it so cheap
to manufacture?
Explain to the audience why a 54 card game is so cheap.
Yeah, because a deck of playing cards is 54, 56 cards. So,
but no, you still haven't explained why.
Yep.
Why is it so cheap to make?
Because
printers.
I'm gonna let him answer the question.
Printers have forms, and they're multiples of 55 or 60
cards. So if I have a 65 card game,
it's going to be over.
It's going to go over a form, and you're going to have to pay. So it's 60 on one form, then 5 on another.
So you stay below that 55 level.
Yep. Yeah, you ask the printer what form size. A lot of them now can do singles.
They can.
Yeah.
This is becoming less of an issue. Technology has improved a lot in the last year.
Like Flux is like 72.
I mean, more importantly, it's just a small number of cards. That's it. No dice, no other components in it. That's what's important. Just a small card game. And you
So,
said,
because you're, the one you've got running right now, or you just finished, the expansion, how many
Right.
cards did the expansion have?
the whole game was under 54. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
And so you're saying start small because that way you don't have to reach as big of an audience.
Right.
You get some success, and then you use that, like you've done, for the momentum to build on the next one.
Exactly. So I mean, keep your white whale game, your big euro. Keep it, put it on the shelf for a little bit, and then do a smaller one. Build an audience, and prove that you can deliver on time and make a good game. Then you can go to a bigger game. And you can
Okay.
keep building it.
Excuse me, do you think this is good advice even if you're not going the Kickstarter route and you plan to pitch your game?
Yeah. The cheaper you can make your game, the more appealing you make it to a publisher. Definitely.
So I pitching to publishers, they'd say, what have you done before? And I said, well, I did a bunch of TCGs. Here are the TCGs I worked on, I'm credited on. And they're like, I don't do TCGs, I don't know what that is, I don't care. And so because I didn't have a game out there, they didn't care. When I was doing Publisher Speed Date, I was showing multiple games. The game that got the most interest right away was the game I said, oh, and this game plays 4 to 8 people and it's 54 cards. Oh, really?
Yeah.
And that was immediate interest because it's cheap to produce that, and so I got the most hits off of that game versus everything else. And then if I get that out there, now I can say, oh, I did this game when I'm pitching my white whale.
The trend right now, sorry it's a tangent, but the trend right now are under 1 hour, large social type games. I know everybody thinks apples to apples, Cards Against Humanity, but there's games that can fill that category.
And I can back it up on Kickstarter. The Kickstarters I back the most now are the game where they're asking me for 20, 25, 30 bucks
Exactly.
to back their
30
game.
to 60-minute
And I'm like, well,
games.
even if I hate this game, it's 20 bucks, and I'll give it a shot. Versus, oh, this is 50 bucks for this huge game. It takes 2 hours, you're never gonna get it to the table. You get to the table a couple of times. Versus a $20 game, you play in 30 minutes. I'm gonna bust that out all the time.
And
I'm much more likely to do
I can
that.
actually roll this part of this conversation into my answer to the question because I'm the naysayer of this. The reason that they want these type of games is because the marketplace has grown so big right now. Okay, the marketplace of the game industry, everybody says golden age, all that other stuff. But at the same time, we have a giant glut. So my answer to roll into all this as being the naysayer is there's nothing you can do to pop up from all the noise right now. There you go. I am going to the extreme because you have things like Settlers of Catan and Munchkin and all these hits that people are, buying all the time. And now, of course, we talked releases. Combined with that, you're a new person that nobody's heard of. You have no brand recognition. Add all of that together, no offense, it's a lot of luck. You can talk about all these reviewers and all this, marketing money that you may spend, which I think is ridiculous when I see all those Kickstarter ads on Board Game Geek. But
I saw my
it's
first billboard the other day and I was floored.
A Kickstarter worth, Lord?
Yeah, right off the 101.
Right off the 101. I was like,
there you go.
What's it for?
it was a computer game. Wasn't it a computer
No, it's
game?
for a 3D
Oh, it's a 3D
headset.
goggles.
Yeah,
Seriously. Smartphone. It hooks up
Wow.
to a smartphone. You can get
There you go.
VR.
But I'm just saying the marketplace is so big right now and so crowded right now that it is so hard for you. I'm not saying it's impossible, of course. I'm just saying you need to be aware of the marketplace currently before you go into this.
Okay, so
that's my back-end business.
All right, so you've pointed out how it's bad. Do you have any positive advice that you can give anybody?
I do.
Yeah, the positive.
No, we're letting Aldo
Okay,
have
so
a
the
chance.
positive,
Wait, now we're cutting your loss.
the positive advice right now, our industry is very social. And really, it's all about, we talked about how you were going to conventions. I have repeated on our video cast that we do, go to conventions all the time. This is a social industry.
Dang,
You
now
need to
people
go to-
know that we like each
that we're
other. I'm
friends.
trying to let them think that we don't like each
Game
other.
together, we hang out together. You got to go to Origins and Gen Con and PAX and all your regional conventions like Pacificon, KubaCon.
But wait a minute, I'm on Kickstarter because I can't afford to spend that kind of money, and now you're telling me to go spend a fortune to go
How
do
much
all-
does it go to take your game and start sitting at a table and demoing it with people?
At Gen Con?
Well,
That's gonna be expensive. At
I'm
PAX?
sorry, what are you in?
I can't even
what-
get into PAX,
then
let
work
alone
your-
demo my
work-
game.
then work
I try to
your
get into
way.
PAX,
Then
couldn't
work
get
your
into
way.
PAX.
Saturate your market and go to your DunderCons, your Pacificons, or your KubaCons. Work your way out, go up to GameStorm in Portland. Just keep going. PAX Prime up in Seattle. You don't have to go to Gen Con immediately. I'm just saying.
So stand outside with a little cardboard thing that says, demo
Look.
my game for food, right?
Look,
Okay, well, I think we got some questions
That's
out here.
our
Scott.
marketplace.
Yeah,
There are conventions that will give entrepreneur booths, and they'll give you.
So how do you find them?
They'll give you deals.
How do you find them? Because You can't just onesie-twosie.
Which kind?
Even Origins a couple of years ago had an entrepreneur booth for somebody. Said the requirement was you hadn't, it was your first game.
Got it.
I played for PAX South this year, and in one of those booths, and they were a little interesting. They were $50 to apply, no guarantee you would get in, and then if you got in, you got a booth in the little entrepreneurial space.
With that being said, though, PAX is a for-profit convention.
It is. And so I talked to my design partner and said, well, should we do this? And he goes, well, I think the $50 is going to screen out a lot of people. We should give it a shot. And we did it, and we got nowhere.
Scott, you had a question.
I have kind of a weird question, and you had mentioned a little bit of this, Jeremy. You were saying that when you went to other publishers and said, hey, I had this background in another game-related field,
right,
that it didn't mean anything. Is that, do you guys find that overall, that just, even if you're coming from some other industry and you have, a pretty good reputation or whatever in that industry, does it just seem overall that the board gaming industry, tabletop industry, doesn't really just care, or?
Imagine you're the publisher.
Right.
And now in the golden age of board games, and the market growing at least 20% a year, if by more, you have 8 bajillion people coming to you with games that they're pitching.
Right.
I mean, how do you screen all those people out? And so you can start to be very picky or very selective because there's so many people are coming to you, and you have so many options that you can say, well, I never heard of you. I don't even need to give you a second look.
Right.
It's like if the job market is super tight, I can like, well, we used to require bachelors for this, but now we can require an MBA because that's the way it is.
This brings up kind of a good point, and that is for the changing in the Kickstarter industry, the ecosystem that's out there. You're going to find a lot of people, if you start talking about a Kickstarter project or launch your Kickstarter, you're going to get a ton of solicitations for people offering to help you promote your project.
Yeah.
Okay? I haven't found one yet that's legit.
There's none out there.
Okay?
I got one a day for like the first week for the con.
Yeah.
And I got form letters, like, we'll help you promote your game.
Yeah.
And like, clearly you do not read what my Kickstarter says. We'll help you get funded. I said, I funded in 8 minutes. Clearly you did not read what my Kickstarter was about.
So there are people out there thinking that they're going to help promote that. It's just, I did it a little bit. I did it a couple of times, and it was just, the people who are going to help you are people who know your industry better than you do. Guess what? You know your industry better than they do. There's nobody out there that's really going to step up and be able to help you run your Kickstarter campaign from a promotional standpoint. Now, they may be able to step up and help you logistically or mechanically figure out, okay, push this button and do this, and don't forget to do that, and give you some reviews and input. But they're not going to know your market, your target, your thematic, whether that's going to work, the relationships. All of that's going to come from you and the work that the panel's telling you to do. But it does bring up an interesting point, and that is if you're doing your first Kickstarter game, you're faced with this dilemma that Aldo says the world is end, give up now. I mean, we won't go that far. But one of the things that is out there is that successful Kickstarter publishers are now in Brian's seat and Teal's seat. And that is, they have an audience, they have momentum, they have people that trust them, now they need product. I have a saying that it's easier to find product for existing customers than to find new customers for existing product. And so one of the things that I would say, and let's see what you guys have to say about that, are you interested in other people coming to solicit you for games that they would rather have go through your brand rather than trying to do it themselves? Brian, let's start with you.
It's a tough question. I guess I've done that quite a bit now over the last year, and I've played a lot of games that I didn't want to publish, and it takes a lot of time to give a game a lot of thought and to play it. And what I used to do is I would actually make a video of me playing it. I'll read through the rules, and it's a blind play test, and that gives something to the designer too. And so I'll make a video of me and a few people playing it, and then I can send that to them and say it didn't really work for these reasons, but here's a video, and here's some of the things that we had trouble with, and
So right now you're a designer and a publisher.
Yeah.
Can you keep going at that pace? Or are you going to have to choose?
No, I could keep doing it. to a point. I think I could maybe go for a couple more games, but my next game was designed by this guy. So
So that answers the question, is that you get to a point where...
but I've played so many games that I didn't want to spend. It takes so much of your time to publish a game. It takes so much. You put your heart and soul into that game. And it's easier when it's your game, but when it's somebody else's, you have to really believe in it. And it's really hard to find that. And I found a game, Booze Barons is the one that I'm going to.
So far you've picked two games here. You've picked Brian's and now you picked Jeremy. So you're doing a good job marketing and getting the name out for your.
I do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's working. You're doing doing great.
So I mean, it's really hard to find that game that speaks to you in that way. That you're willing to put so much.
But you're bringing up a point where it takes so much to publish. You have 3 projects out there, 2 of them that haven't delivered yet. Do you really have the cycles now to keep designing games when you really should be focusing on the business of publishing games? Can you continue to wear both hats and do so effectively, or are you literally just now shortchanging one,
Yeah.
If your best-selling game of the year sells out, can you respond quick enough to print more?
Right. It's tough. No, I don't think I can. To answer in short, no, I'm going to have to I'm going to make a decision, and I'm already decided it's a publisher. I want to be a publisher. That's the future, but I still want to design.
It's interesting, so you want to be a publisher, but you went and launched your own game first. Now you know the process, you got the crowd, the audience, and now, so it's a great formula. Teal, what about you?
It's a decision that's coming up that I haven't had to officially make, but I'm totally sympathetic to Brian's thoughts that it takes a lot of work and you have to really believe in what you're putting out there. And it's hard for me to imagine feeling that way about somebody else's game. Do I have enough games in the pipeline to keep things going? That's a tough question. I mean, I am not sure how many games a year that I would need to kickstart or to release in order to make it sustainable. But
let me ask you then, sustainable, why are you doing this? Is this your full-time job?
This is my full-time job, yeah. And why am I doing it? Because I've always wanted to be a game designer, and this has been my opportunity to do it.
Designer or publisher?
Designer, for sure. So the question is, do I have to become a publisher in order to continue on that track? Like, do I have to pick up other people's games and put them to market because I can't do both things?
Or do you go find somebody who is publishing, and because now you have a track record that you're able to approach a publisher and say, look, I have a following, I have a track record, I'm proven, I'd like to design games, but I want you to publish them for me.
Yeah, so I'm considering both routes, and I'm not sure where it's going to go.
Do we have any questions along that route? Yeah, question. What was your name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, what's your question?
Well, along that line, since you guys say it takes a lot of your effort to play test and try new games as their demo to you, have you ever thought of having somebody else do the screening for you?
Yeah, I would love, I've been saying that for a long time. I wish there was a good system, and I know people have tried and they haven't found a way to do it, but yeah, if there was a way for me to get games play tested in some formal system where I could get, feedback on that actually, video or something tangible for each game. I wish there was a play testing system out there. I talked to multiple people, suggesting that they do it, and so I think it's.
PubServe does that. I mean, you have the form on the website, and you have their paper form, and it's standardized, and you have their scoring system, and you can get their app on iOS, and it posts directly into the database. And so they have the tools to do game evaluations from the person playing the game, and that's why I like them. That's why I wanted to encourage you guys to put your game in the Pub database and use that tool, because it is a way of gathering objective data, and then looking at it later.
There's for example, SaltCon. SaltCon is a convention in Salt Lake City.
Yep.
They have a game design contest. You bring your game out there.
Iron Award.
If you win, then the creators of the con get basically rights of first refusal type thing to bid on your game to publish it. SaltCon and this whole process is set up for that purpose, to bring in games by a specific publisher so they can evaluate and get first dibs, not right of first refusal, but first dibs to see a game that maybe they want to. And Pizza Theory, the folks up in, if anybody played Pizza Theory, familiar with that? Okay. Yeah. So they got it. They won the award at SaltCon, and the publishers there who set up the contest actually then stepped up and grabbed the game and published it for them. So that's something.
They're locals.
So
They're actually locals here.
Yeah.
Yeah, San Rafael. San Rafael Game Designers Guild.
Yep.
You can go up there, I've been out there several times.
And so that's something to think about, is to start taking your game to contests, because there are publishers who are specifically looking to see, using those contests as a vetting process for games that they'd like to see.
Does everybody know KublaCon has a game design contest next month?
Candy's won multiple times.
Unfortunately, the time to apply for
Yeah,
that
so-
game design
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
go by
yeah, I don't
today.
It was the day this started.
How do you find
That was
other
the deadline. Yeah.
How do you find out other contests? That's a good question. How do you find out other contests?
It's
Online?
just hearing word of mouth at conventions, what they have. Conventions are having play to win now. They're having all these different things, contests, play to win, tournaments.
So,
You
probably
just have
Game
to-
design contest. Game design
I know, but
contest.
I'm just saying that you have to go to
Cardboard
conventions to see what they're
Cardboard
offering.
Edison, which we talked about last night, they do spit out a lot of those and track those.
Which
And then you also want to use your network of designers you know. Say, hey, you guys hear about this contest? Let's all apply for it.
Facebook group.
Yeah, Board Game Geek also often has contests running on their websites.
And yeah, the game craft
Which is that?
Yeah.
The game craft.
Game Director has
yeah.
like monthly contests that they do.
Yep. Salt Lake City happens to have, the University of Utah has a board game design guild. Professors and faculty who are involved, and that's been running for several years.
The IN award means more than a lot of the other ones because the way they structure that and the way they do their judging is actually better. So, for example, Tabletop Deathmatch, the finalists, the judges didn't play any of those games. The finalists made the finals based solely on the theme and the judge's first impression of that game. And so it's all done.
Two-step SaltCon.
Yes, SaltCon is.
They send out the strategy, like strategy. You get 15, 20 games, and you write your reviews very quickly, just based on, like you said. And you only see the 4 that win, the 4 that make the top.
But they actually play it
Category.
before they award the winner.
That's right. Oh yeah, you have
Yeah.
to play it each
My
time
point here
you
is
put
that
it
there
out.
are now, so you keep thinking about this ecosystem, it is within your power to do this yourself. If you're a publisher and looking for games, it's within your power to actually start and launch your own contest, own publishing, join up with another con, launch your own mini con, you got a day event, anything. This event itself has the capacity and ability to do that. So these are different ways for you to think about getting your game out there, to get it recognized and attracted by a publisher. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
I
got some
thought
questions
you were,
on
I
that.
thought you were suggesting that a publisher run those types of events.
I am.
Okay, because I don't know if publishers have time to do that. I would rather have a designer do that and basically give me a resume of why their game should be published. You know, I mean,
Sure.
if they win
Well, there's a
win
difference
contests,
between
if
running
they-
it and being the major sponsor or theme behind it. Because if you were to
Yeah.
bring all of these games to you, if you're a publisher looking for games, spending the money to bring the games to you rather than spending the money to go find the games and to go to the cons and play test and that type of thing, it might be a cost-effective way to actually bring people to you and giving you dibs where you're not competing now with other publishers trying to capture a game.
Yeah, I can see that, but we get so many, publishers get so many, just emails all the
Solicitations.
time about.
See, and this is the $50 that Jeremy was just talking about. The very act of
Yeah.
forcing them to go through some hoops to get the game in front of you weeds out just the wannabes who are just sending you.
I like the publisher speed dating for that format
Yep.
because I'm going to hit 30 publishers in 2 hours.
Does everybody know what that is? Does everybody know what the publisher speed dating is that James Matthew does?
Awesome.
James Matthew from Minion Games.
So I enroll in publisher speed dating as a designer, and I say, hey, this is the game that I'm going to bring, and I need to have my
convention
at a convention. They do a
Many,
Gen
many
Con,
conventions.
he does it a lot.
Yeah.
People are taking
Origins,
over ones he can't go to.
VGG
Yeah,
Con.
yeah.
The guy who was the head of the SaltCon Iron Award ran it at VGG Con in November. I'm going to have my one-page sell sheet, my resume for my game, and I can show you some samples if you want. That in mine, it's half image and then bullet points, what the game is, including the components. It's really basic and what makes my game unique. And then I have 3 minutes to pitch it to the publisher, and then the next publisher comes in. And so for me, that worked well, because what it did is I immediately got hits from 4 or 5 publishers that were interested in following up. And then they could say, yeah, I want to follow up, I want to try that game, or they get back to me later, look at the sell sheet, they get back to me later, and then remember the pitch and say, I'd like to know more about this. And it's not a big waste of their time. 2 hours of Brian's time, he sees 30 games. And he can write on the back of the sell sheet, now follow up on this one, follow up, no. And he gets right down to what he wants. And for me, I reached 30 publishers in 2 hours. Rather than walking around like, hey, can I meet you after the show floor closes today and show you this game? You know, do you have time for me?
And that publisher speed dating actually went for the first time going from a consumer convention, which is where most of you guys go to our industry trade show in Vegas, which is in March, the GAMA Trade Show, GTS. So the GAMA trade show is retailers, distributors, and industry people. Speed dating was part of that show this year. It's the first time.
Okay. So, okay, go ahead. Just a quick note. There are some untraditional places you can go that have contests and things such as that, and that is the International Game Developers Association, which is primarily a video game association, but they do a lot of board gaming stuff, and then associated conventions, things like Indiecade down in LA and other types of things like that. So there's a lot of crossover between video game and board gaming now.
Perfect.
As a publisher, speaking as a publisher, I go to, one of the reasons I went to VGG-Con was publish Speed Dating. I saw his stuff, I saw a couple others, so I go there specifically because somebody like James has done the vetting process for me. And my biggest problem is I don't snap them up fast enough.
Right.
I talked to him the next day, it was too late.
Too late.
So it's a very effective way because as a publisher, it's a great use of my time. I can't think of any other venue where I saw 10 games an hour for 3 hours a night for 3 nights in a row.
Sure.
My biggest problem is keeping track of them.
Sure.
So
This has been a great topic in last night's panel because it has nothing to do with Kickstarter. Let's talk about some Kickstarter. That's an excellent point. So let's talk about some
Find
Kickstarter
those
questions.
things and get involved. You'll get a lot of attention.
Should you use Kickstarter? Should you use Kickstarter? Is there a reason? Because a comment was raised about not using Kickstarter. Should I or should I not use Kickstarter? And what are the risks of? And the question says, will I lose my house? Okay. Is there a time I shouldn't use Kickstarter? Aldo,
You want me to start?
Well, you're the contrarian. You're gonna have something negative to say.
Okay, so let's just say back before Kickstarter, when I was doing this, which was what, a year ago, 2 years ago, Kickstarter. Anyway, in the traditional way of things, people use their own money to fund their games, borrow it from their mom, put it on 3 credit cards, take a loan out on their house. Kurt Covert from Smirk and Dagger has finally paid it off after about 7 or 8 years because he was a traditional publisher, that took it out on his home. That was the way you do business. You use your money or somebody else's.
Yes,
With
usually
venture
use
capital.
somebody else's
So this
money.
Kickstarter is now microtransactions of other people's money, basically.
And so I've heard negative comments that we've shifted the risk from the creator now to the consumer.
Yes.
And that's somehow a negative thing. I don't agree with that it's a negative thing, but yes, the risk has been spread out. Is there a risk with Kickstarter? Should I not use Kickstarter at some point?
So of the projects I backed, maybe 20% have never delivered, and maybe never will.
And does that bother you?
20%.
Does that cause you to not back future projects?
It does. Now I'm much more cautious about backing the project, and I will look at the project, and if they're going bananas with stretch goals, I will not back them, or I will cancel my pledge, because that raises their risk of failing to deliver exponentially. The more they go crazy with stretch goals, the more likely I think they're going to fail.
And why is that? So how many stretch goals is a good number to have, and why is all these stretch goals going to make you think they're going to fail?
I think stretch goals are bad, and I hate stretch goals. And I've come to this after backing lots of things, because here's what stretch goals do. I see campaigns go up, and they have a good game from a good designer, and no one jumps on it. They're like, oh, I'm going to wait and see what the stretch goals are. I'm only going to back if I get 8 bajillion extra free things. And so I've seen good games from good designers and good publishers fail to fund because everybody waited and nobody jumped on. And I've seen this happen. I've also seen people go bananas with stretch goals.
Ogre.
And Steve Jackson has the pockets to do that. And so the one from Grant's publisher, they just went bankrupt. So I backed this thing, Smash Monster Rampage. They went bananas on the stretch goals. And what happened is it ate all their cash. It delayed their game months and months and months in China, making extra components, doing extra artwork, and then they didn't have enough cash to pay their suppliers to ship it. I've seen Brian did some stuff where you did an add-on, not even a stretch goal, an add-on, and now his game no longer fit in the cheaper postal box. So all his postage went up to mail that game out. I've seen tons of campaigns. The stretch goals makes it so the weight goes over a certain limit, and when they factor down if they're going to make money, now they're losing money on every game they ship.
But we can't paint a broad stroke that says all stretch goals are bad.
Right.
I'm going to say pretty close to all stretch goals are bad.
I don't think all stretch goals are bad.
And I can make that argument, and I can show you campaigns to back it up.
I think you're right for the most part, Jeremy. I think in general, yeah, they're not a good thing for the industry, well, for Kickstarter, because it does make a lot of projects fail, but I do think there are good stretch goals. I think the good stretch goals are the ones that were planned from the beginning, well before the campaign launched. That they planned.
You should not make up any stretch goals during your campaign.
I agree with that.
We all have all done ahead of it.
100%. Yes. But if you do component upgrades, that's a perfect stretch goal because you're not increasing you're not risking shipping exploding on you. It's going to fit in the same box. I mean, as long as you do all the research.
Let's just make sure we understand. So component upgrade, the quality of the paper, the quality of the cards, the quality.
Right. Exactly. Yep. So basically, making the game a higher quality. Those are good stretch goals.
More
in my
unique art
opinion,
instead of generic art.
Yeah, as long as you just make sure that it still fits in the same shipping container that you had planned on using.
We got a question back here about this. Yeah.
So why don't designers then create their game and incorporate the stretch goals with what they already have?
They do that now.
Yeah.
And so then I get a half-baked game. The game they show me isn't a complete game because they're counting on the stretch goals to complete that game. Or they plan their stretch goals last minute and they're not as good as the base game, which they've tested for 100 hours. Oh, we got the stretch goal add-on, we've only tested for 10 hours, and it ruins the base game. Now the base game's no good.
So Cool Mini or Not, which is pumping out $1 million projects about every 3 months based on stretch goals, you're saying is bad.
Their business model, I'm going to say that their games are bad.
Oh, the games suck. Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're collecting the goodies, right?
Miniatures.
Yeah.
Great.
Miniatures are good. And so that's
It's a miniature box of miniatures with a game loosely wrapped around it.
correct. I wouldn't define them as really a board game.
Yeah.
So are you saying board game stretch goals?
Board game stretch goals.
Board game stretch goals. Okay. Jeremy's got a strong opinion about this.
And nothing bothers me more when I get on a game and it doesn't fit the dang box. The stretch goals come like taped on and then I can't close the box because of the stupid stretch goals. That drives me crazy. I get rid of those games.
But you bought it.
I did, but when I bought it didn't have all the stupid stretch goals.
Right.
And now it did, it ruined the game.
Any other questions on stretch goals? Teal, did you have a comment you want to make about that, or you just stretching?
I have a couple of comments. One is I do think that stretch goals tend to be bad for design, for the game design, unless they're the type that Brian was talking about, component upgrades, that sort of thing. For Birds of a Feather, we had 2 stretch goals. One was for a 2-piece box, one was for nicer card stock.
So I bid on that. I bid on that. I was like, okay, that's pretty reasonable.
Right.
I can handle that.
And the other thing is I looked into those in advance. So I've been talking to the manufacturer for months before we launched.
And we said if I had this much money, we can spend this much on card stock. Okay.
Exactly. I didn't do anything that was going to change the gameplay, even though people love to get more and more and more because more and more is not good for game design.
And that ruins the industry because now people get more bad games from Kickstarter, and they're less likely to back future campaigns.
Yeah.
Not sure I agree with that.
So the other thing.
Still not sure I agree with that.
The other thing I want to say is that stretch goals are designed from a publisher perspective to increase the number in the top right of a Kickstarter, to increase the amount of money that people are putting in. And I think that that's the real danger of Kickstarter, is people thinking that that's what you're supposed to do, is increase that number, which is, I mean, it's great to get a lot of money in, but you have to think about the cost of what you're doing, because it's not a one-dimensional thing. Every time that you're getting more money, you're also having a new person that you have to please. If you're adding stretch goals,
more promises.
You're making more promises, you're setting expectations higher, and you're complicating things for yourself. So
I agree with that.
Sounds like we should go back to the old way of doing games. Your own money.
Your own money.
Sounds pretty good, right?
I wouldn't be able to make games.
So let's come back. Let me come back to this question. Is there a reason we shouldn't use Kickstarter? Because we didn't answer that question. Is there a reason we shouldn't use Kickstarter?
The fees and the extra time to please all those people. If you're like, I don't want to pay the fees, and I don't want to spend all this time pleasing people and just do my own thing, then that's the only reason.
But don't you have a point where if I have a game and I kickstarted it and now I go to a publisher, isn't that in some ways a negative?
It is.
That is a big negative unless you...
So there might be a time where I don't want to put it on Kickstarter if I have the funds to launch it myself, to publish it myself and then pitch it to
Because
publishers.
once you get the money, there's been rare instances where people with successful Kickstarters have gotten the eye from a publisher. Randy Hoyt did his Lanterns game got picked up by somebody after he was going to publish it himself. These are rare instances that happens, but once you go on the Kickstarter route, you're a self-publisher basically. You're publishing it for yourself. You gone into it with that goal of, I need the money, I want to do this under my game company.
I have a good answer for this question too. So I have a game, language independence, and it's cheap to produce. And I seriously thought about self-kickstarting it. And I bought art for it, and I did all my homework. And I thought, what I realized is that I couldn't be EU friendly to launch this game. And I couldn't get into China. And so I could do what Daniel Solis does. Daniel Solis self-publishes in the USA and licenses to publishers outside the USA. And that's his model. And he's not using Kickstarter right now. He's doing just direct sales through drive-thru cards. And I thought about doing something like that, but I realized that this game's potential would be maximized by a publisher who could put it language independent in China, USA, and Europe at the same time. So I took that game the publisher route instead, because I thought it was the better route for that game to go.
You're not funding it yourself, you're pitching it to publishers to get them to fund it yourself. To get them to fund it.
And they're not going to put it on Kickstarter. I went to a big publisher, and they're putting it out, no Kickstarter.
Okay, did you have a question?
Just my question was that, do you think that hurts people taking other games to publishers if they've done a Kickstarter game? Do you think?
Other games, like not the game on Kickstarter.
So imagine the factor, who are you, why would we look at your game? If I have a successful Kickstarter, will that open the door for me?
Yeah, you could say, oh, I did a Kickstarter and I hated it and I don't want to do it anymore, and please, I want somebody else to publish my game. I mean, no, they don't mind. It's
just the game itself.
Yeah, and you have a more realistic idea of how much work it is. I know how much Brian's work is going to do to publish my game. And that's why I want to do that, because Brian gets to have all that stress, which is awesome for me. And so I have an appreciation of how much work he's really going to put into it.
But that's low risk, low reward for you. You've chosen that path.
Yes.
You have chosen low risk, low reward.
Correct.
Okay, let somebody else do it.
Okay, great answer. All right, I got another question here. That is the whole retailer Kickstarter thing, because it's kind of a follow-up. How do you bridge the gap between Kickstarter and the retail stores? How do you?
Can I answer that question? Can I answer that?
I'm looking at you.
So way long ago, when Kickstarter started, one of the first things
last year, according to me,
was that one of the things that I brought forth to many of the clients that I was talking to, because the feedback from the retailers and the distributors were, although we saw that this game was on Kickstarter, we're really not going to order it for our store or for our wholesaler, just because it was on Kickstarter. What people have tried to create then were goals, reward levels, that were specific for retailers. Because what do retailers want? I'm sorry, let's give the big secret. Game Castle gets 50% off the MSRP of these games that you see here, except maybe Magic and a couple others. So the $50 games that they get for $25, they're not going to support a game and reward for $40 that they could possibly, or what they're used to their margins being is $25.
And they need that margin to pay the rent.
And they need that margin to pay the electricity and all this space. And so the retailer reward levels were incorporated to basically placate the retailers. Now I can tell you, it's political, it's to placate, and honestly, not many retailers even back them. Not a lot. So look at Steve. Steve, are you stretching? Are you disagreeing with me?
Stretching my neck.
There's not a lot of retailers that.
Oh, there's a pain in my neck too.
I know. I know Miniature Market has tended to jump on that bandwagon and pitch and take those retailer reward levels. Because the only reason those retailers will take them is because if you treat them equally and they get every stretch goal that all the people get.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Aldo keep talking here.
Fairness.
So you represent, you're a consolidator of these Kickstarter projects.
Sure.
Right?
Yes. Retailer and distributor side only. We have nothing to do with the consumer side.
Right, but you have now these project owners who launched the game on Kickstarter, and you're acting as a consolidator, bringing it together.
Broker, salesperson, whatever, yeah.
So are there other people other than you that are doing this?
I have one competitor in the industry.
Who's that?
PSI. They handle all the Munchkin stuff from Steve Jackson games.
So if I have a game on Kickstarter and I launch it on Kickstarter and I have success, can I go talk to PSI and possibly get them to distribute my game?
Sure. Yeah.
What are my chances?
For both of us, next to nil right now. Again, marketplace so big, we have no warehouse space. We're all flooded. I mean, you can't hire enough people. You can't buy enough building space fast enough. It's too much right now. We have to. It's like you guys trying to digest between designer and publisher, what you were talking about. I'm trying to digest units of games.
So does that mean that if I launch the game myself, I'm on my own, start calling up distributors and retailers?
Yeah, see what you can do, see if you can break through. I'm not saying everything's 100% no. I mean, you can do it on your own. You don't need us. We're like a middleman.
I asked retailers, were they willing to, so I was looking at this.
To buy direct?
On consignment. So let's say I produce the game, it's all sitting in my garage.
Yeah.
I go to this retailer and say, you're willing to carry this on consignment. If it doesn't sell, you pay nothing. If you sell, then I get paid. And the most retailers I talk to were willing to do that.
I cannot imagine you're getting most retailers saying that.
So
I have warehouse space up the wazoo with product that I would go to any retailer under the world and say,
Are you on
"Can I
consignment,
give you
Brandon?
pallets?"
Yeah, I've got a consignment in 4 stores right now.
Consignment on 4 stores. And then I told the store, I said I would come demo the game, so I would try to generate
I'm
those
sorry,
sales.
there's 2,200 stores in North America.
Sure.
I'm not discounting what you're doing. I'm just saying
But that's
overall.
the small local.
when I go to my
niche,
mailing
right?
list to
I do this as a hobby that I want
retailers,
to positive.
And I'm coming from Santa Cruz, so we always keep it local anyway.
It's different in Santa.
I want to ask Brian about the same question.
Yeah.
Brian, what were your revenue and profits for Good Cop, Bad Cop on Kickstarter versus distribution?
Oh, come on. That's the most unfair question in the world because distribution is the biggest wholesale discount
I
ever.
don't think people don't know that. They think, I'm going to make more money on Kickstarter and then a little bit of money in distribution.
No,
I talk to designers all the time that think that way.
Yeah.
Distribution is where the money's at.
But
Yeah.
the designer goes, I get this piece of the pie in Kickstarter, and I get this piece of the pie in distribution.
Right.
I'm going to make all my money on Kickstarter.
So Kickstarter, you're gonna break even in Kickstarter if you're lucky. If you do it well, if you plan it right, maybe you'll make a tiny bit of money. But you're gonna really make you'll become profitable. You'll be sustainable if you make your distribution model.
Let's
That's
explain
what's
why.
important.
Let's explain why. Because on Kickstarter, I'm going to launch this game. I'm going to print. How many copies am I going to print on my Kickstarter project?
Pick the number of backers. How many? 500 backers?
500 backers.
No more than 1,500, maybe 2,000.
So I'm going to print 1,500 games, and how much is my game going to cost?
$20 is a good number.
It's sure. It all depends on the.
Retail.
We just said a $35 card game, a $35 or $30 game, right? $25 to $30. So
to manufacture.
So the idea is $25.
How do I get to break even? So you said I'm going to break even. Well, okay, if I got 500 backers and the game sells for $30, how did I break even on that? Because it sounds like I made a lot of money on Kickstarter.
Well, you'll have, if you do it right, you'll have some copies left over. So 500, if it's 500 backers and you do a 1,500 print run, sure, you have 1,000 copies left over. So that's breaking even financially, but you have product.
Okay.
If you can sell it, but if you keep it in your garage and you don't have distribution, you're not going to sell it, or you'll sell a very small amount of it.
Online convention.
You can maybe sell some online on your website. Maybe you can go to a convention and sell a few, but that's a lot. Maybe Amazon too. But you're going to spend a lot of your time.
So quick math,
doing
you
that.
got a $20 game, you printed 1,500 copies, it cost you, what, $10?
Sure.
So that's $15,000.
Sure.
So if you raised $15,000,
Yep.
you have those 500 backers funded.
You still got to ship it to all of your backers.
Right.
So and most people don't calculate shipping correctly when they do a Kickstarter.
Hey, did you know you have to ship to my warehouse too?
Yeah, you have to ship from China.
Do you know you have to give me a commission? I mean, there's.
Yeah, you have to ship
the
from.
list goes on.
So
and
if
on.
I ship 1,500 copies of I guess an average sized game, it's going to cost $3,500 to ship those copies to all those warehouses or my house or my warehouse or whatever I have. So $3,500, you have to put that into it. Now you also got to ship it out to all of your backers. Some of them in Australia, Germany, wherever they're coming from, and that's way more than most people think it's going to be.
And that's where that guy lost his house.
Yeah, and you can do that.
Shipping.
And that's where the publisher takes on that risk. But so what I need Aldo, I need distribution because I have a full-time job and I don't have time to build relationships with all the distributors, build relationships with all the retailers. Honestly, when they contact me on Kickstarter, most of them I say, talk to your favorite distributor, and I just give them to Aldo. And I don't actually work with retailers one-on-one because I don't have time.
And that's why I need Brian, because Brian gets me to Aldo.
Yeah.
And so
you need me too. You need me too.
No, but that's really true. That's why the designer is now talking to the publisher, who's talking to the distributor.
Lots of pieces of the pie.
Lots of pieces of the pie, so that Kickstarter funding looks big. That's why, a lot of people measure success. Hey, I raised more money than he did, but that really isn't it. And that's why I start looking at the number of backers, because those backers are worth a lot more money than the money they gave.
Yep.
As long as you
give them more product.
Yep, as long as you keep giving them more product. Yeah, I got a question way in the back.
So can you go through a quick analysis on the other side of the fence? So Kickstarter all of a sudden doesn't sound that rosy, whereas if I go to distribution, can you go through a quick monetary breakdown of how much I might get and what the increased size of distribution?
So this is the question I asked. And if you want to ballpark or whatever, how much money, good talk got that, did you, revenue and profit, you just ballpark in distribution versus Kickstarter?
We had a limited print run.
Yeah,
But still, even on that limited print run, I think it's going to be enlightening.
Are you going to talk about your unit sales? Because if not, I can talk about something else.
No, I don't mind that. I want to give people accurate numbers, and I don't really have them offhand. But I guess we'll go rough, like ballpark. You know, so for a very small game like Good Cop Bad Cop, I might make $1.50 on each copy that I sell through distribution. You know, very small. This is a $15 game. You know, maybe $20 game. So if I do a very small print run, that's probably all I'm going to make on that game. But if I sell direct, you know, then I'm making $7, $8, because if I sell like directly through my website. So
okay, so the one thing, this is where I have to jump in with a little business, boring business conversation. A lot of things that people don't realize. One thing I've talked to Richard about a lot. Kickstarter is, like, to me, almost the one and done phenomenon. You get your 500 backers, you get your money in your pocket. Okay? And you get a great margin for it. Distribution, you get that horrible margin, and people come to me and they go, Aldo, I'm making $1 from every sale you make. This is ridiculous. I made $10 when I sold my Kickstarter. The key here is to go over that hump and to be that Carcassonne, that's that Catan, whatever. I know that sounds outrageous, but even if you can be a minor hit like Red Dragon Inn, which is huge for us, okay? That's
Sushi Go.
Sushi Go. I handled Sushi Go, and then Game Right took it over. That was so. I mean, he made the deal with Game Right. I was like, oh my god. Anyway,
sorry to bring that up.
Thanks a lot, Rich. But something like, let's just say a Red Dragon Inn, you know, they started out being the same thing as you guys, but then the demand came, and that's what you're hoping for, is that the demand comes so you can increase your reprint, so you can get your cost of goods down. But the bigger thing is what we like to call, of course, the evergreen effect. You want your game to become evergreen in some capacity. Whatever capacity your game becomes evergreen, if you can just kick back, like me right now, and Brian over here kick back with Good Cop, Bad Cop, and I just keep writing checks every month because we just keep selling it naturally, that is the place you want to be, and that's the tipping point for wholesale.
What's a good evergreen number?
I tell my clients 50 a month. If I can sell 50 or more a month in distribution worldwide, really low number.
50, that's not very high at all.
Not very high, trust me, 90% of the games don't do it.
Settlers of Catan will sell like 390,000 a year.
But 50 a month, and that's what Brian isn't really much doing anything there. That's 50 a month without Brian investing additional time
and
in the
I'm
game.
not doing anything at that point, not much either.
Yeah, careful.
We do it all. I do it all in the beginning. It's mostly getting people started making it. But once that game, it's kind of ironic that once the game starts getting that traction, that 50 plus a month, let's just say that random number, whatever that number is, I'm just collecting purchase orders, shipping product, and I'm writing a check and he's collecting it. It really is so much easier, and that is the goal, and that is why distribution is important. It should be a piece of your pie, and it shouldn't be the only piece. It should be part of that pie. Kickstarter should also be a part of it. Conventions, the list goes on and on.
Excellent.
This is a follow-up to his question.
Yeah, let me have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Quick follow-up. So yesterday we talked, publishing deals, say 4 to 8%.
Sure.
Is that 4 to 8% off of the $1.50, Brian?
No, MSRP. Those are usually 3%.
No, they're usually off wholesale.
Really?
Yeah. 48% off whatever we would get. So if I sell it for 50% of the MSRP, a designer would get 48% of that. But it all depends on the contract that you make.
I was just wondering where that's
Okay. So I know some designers who have all their games that they kickstarted in their garage, and they just go to local cons, and they sell them there, and they get the full margin doing that.
Yep.
But they are investing all their time and sweat equity doing that.
They're working for free.
And well, they're not working for free. And some of them like that. They say, you know what? This is my hobby. I enjoy this, and this is now an income positive hobby. I do this for fun. It makes me money. I get to go to these shows, get to interact with people, and I like this.
But Brian
but I'm never gonna make a living that way.
You two aren't doing this just for fun, right? Or are you?
No.
Are you independently wealthy and we don't know?
No.
You know what?
I'm independently
Big Hero
frugal.
6? Big Hero 6. You're Fred in Big Hero 6.
I haven't actually seen it.
You have to see it. He's the one that lives in the mansion that's got the butler with the family chopper. I think that's you. Okay,
I don't have enough money to go see it.
I don't believe it. All right. Okay, I got a few questions. We're about out of time, so let me just ask a couple of more questions. And that is, will Kickstarter be used incrementally by large publishers as a pre-order or marketing platform? Are we going to see Fantasy Flight? We're going to see, are we going to see Ogre?
Asmodee,
Steve
Jackson.
Are they coming back to Kickstarter?
Didn't I say that there was a 9% fee? They don't want to give that up. The big guys don't need to give it up. They've got the cash flow.
Correct. So I talked to Eagle Griffith about this at Outlook 5.
They do it tons. I don't know why.
And so what they say though is the reason they're doing it is for games they wouldn't otherwise publish. Like the baseball highlights game, they're like, we don't know if a baseball game can sell. So what we'll do is we'll do Kickstarter. And that will tell us if this excels. If they have a game that they know is going to sell, then they don't need to do Kickstarter. They can keep that extra 9%. But if they're like, well, this game is kind of on the bubble. We're not sure if it's going to make it or not. We'll put it on Kickstarter, and if it funds, we do it. And if it doesn't, then great. We didn't invest all this money.
That's what Jackson said about Ogre.
Yeah.
But they also, their Kickstarter campaigns are incredibly simple. They don't put much time into making like the campaign and making it an experience for the backers.
Because all they're looking for is this.
Exactly. They just throw it up there. Here's a couple images. Here's a video, basic gameplay. Do you want this? And then you know the campaigns aren't huge, but they kind of get to understand whether it's going to be successful or not.
Okay, well, we're just about out of time. I got two more questions. What has led to your success rate? Teal, Brian, what do you think? Quick answer. What has led to the success? Have you ever failed a Kickstarter campaign?
I've not, but I mean, you could consider corporate America a failure. Because I only crossed the threshold that I had because of the generosity of friends and family, right? So if I didn't have that very supportive support network, then I wouldn't have done.
But you have succeeded.
I have succeeded, and a big part of it is because of that. They gave me, a lot of this panel has been talking about Kickstarter as sort of like a business model or something, which it can be. But the original idea behind Kickstarter was to jumpstart a project.
An artist you believe in.
Yeah, and I think that's what that campaign was for me. It was a lot of people that knew me and knew that I was able to create something interesting and fun.
This was a way for them to back you without it necessarily feeling like a handout.
Yeah.
Correct. Support someone that I believe in.
And also it gave me a chance to show everybody that I could actually do something. And now that I have done that, I have evergreen supporters, right? People that I've never met who are going to come back to me and be like, I like this game, you've done a great job, and I want to keep helping you do these things.
And that's really, I call it the cult of personality type marketing, right? And it was said earlier, you back the person, not necessarily the project, right? And that's becoming more and more how to stand out, is to build your personality up, either through social, through activity, people know you, they start to connect with you, you show up on different events, that type of thing, and that's what you tap into, is that emotional. And that's why these big corporations sometimes fail to grasp that subtle concept, that Kickstarter really is an emotional connection between you and your backers, and not necessarily just a pre-order system. Okay, Brian, you got the success that you've had. What's led to your success, real quick?
I think what I said before in starting small and growing, each game that we've made has kind of grown. I guess the latest campaign was smaller than New Salem, but start small, get bigger, and
each one get a little more ambitious.
Yeah. And the bigger your game, usually the bigger your margin too. So that's important. But I guess more than anything, it's intense research on Kickstarter, on the industry, learning how it works, and it's taken a long time to do it, but that is the most important thing in just learning and researching and listening to Funding the Dream, and all the other.
Well, now you've been three of us. Okay, that's awesome. You're doing a great job.
I would say, as a super backer, you need to be in your own campaign video. I watch so many videos now, and I don't see the designer in the video. I only see the game. And for me, I will back campaigns, and I just backed one. Evil Hat did. I hated the game. I have no interest in the game, but I love the designer. So I backed him for $10 to get the digital copy, which I'll never print out and never play. But I believe in that guy, and I want to back that guy. And so I need to see you in your campaign video Because in many cases, I'm backing the person more than the prize.
Great answer to that.
Last question.
Last question. The last question really is, when is it too late or is it too early to launch my campaign? If I want to make a game, I'm designing the game, when do I launch the Kickstarter project for that game? Is it just to cover the production costs? Is it after I've designed it? At what point do I launch the Kickstarter campaign for my game?
It better be 100% done.
Yeah.
I would say,
What does that mean?
You don't need all the art. The game needs to be done though. The game needs to be very thoroughly play tested, and you need to have a manufacturing plan for sure, manufacturing and shipping. So you need to be prepared to use the money, and you need the art to show off. You don't need to have all of the art finished, but you definitely need to know how much art you need, and you need to have that process started.
Quick, just off the top of your heads, what percentage of the decision is art factoring into whether a person backs a project?
So for me, not a whole lot. Because I put lots of games as a game designer that I think are mechanically poor, that have done very well because of great art. And I'm going to say Sushi Go is one of those. Teal's drafting game is a better drafting game, mechanically. But the art in the Sushi Go and the easy player to play,
the art was terrible.
The art was so cute.
The art is so cute. People love that cute art. People love that cute art.
I think Jeremy's in the minority. I think most people, they need to be wowed in order to hit the back button, and art's the best way to do it.
So one of the things I say is that your art should be professional, your video should be personal. So many people put production quality into the video, well really they just need to make it personal like you're saying. And then you can't skimp on the art though, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that people or you're suspicious of good art, or it doesn't sway you. Bad art sways a lot of people.
It does.
If your art doesn't look good, they're not even going to give your game.
They don't think you're competent enough to hire a good artist or commission good art. That's true.
Okay, in our last couple minutes, questions. We've covered a lot of them. Yes, Scott?
Yeah, you had a comment earlier where you said that you were going to make, if you had 500 backers, you were going to print 1,500 copies?
Correct.
Why the overage of 1,000 copies?
Because you want to go ahead.
You have to
Bulk printing lowers the cost.
Well,
Brandon wants to sell his extra copies and shows he goes to at cons, and so now he's going to a con and he's making money at the con.
The printers won't print less than 1,500.
Yeah, the printers won't print
There's
less
some
than
that'll print 1,000, but it's
Okay, another question? Yeah, right here.
Is Kickstarter the only game in town, or are there other
Great question. I didn't ask that one.
Indiegogo sites or something that's even worth looking at?
Are you talking about board games?
We're still talking about board games.
My answer is no. That Kickstarter and the board game community have grown up together. Board game community influenced Kickstarter.
Yes.
Kickstarter had never seen stretch goals before until they saw board game designers putting stretch goals in, and we invented a whole new category. They had never seen anybody advertise a Kickstarter campaign before until they noticed that one of the top 10 refers to Kickstarter.com was coming from this place called BoardGameGeek.com, and they'd never heard of it. So they went and looked, and all of a sudden, for the first time, they saw people advertising Kickstarter projects. The board game community and the Kickstarter community have literally grown up together, and they're synonymous. So if you put your project on Indiegogo, people are going to ask you, what was wrong with your project that Kickstarter wouldn't let it be there?
That's fair.
So it's probably pornographic?
I one Indiegogo for a board game.
Right, or it involves some type of alcohol that you're giving out as a stretch goal. Okay? So that's why it's on Indiegogo. So the answer is that Kickstarter and board games go hand in hand, and your backers understand it. The whole ecosystem is built around Kickstarter, and if you step out of that, it asks questions about what's wrong with you rather than somehow that you're a trailblazer and you found a better way to do it. Because nobody's going to believe that. And so my answer is no, that Kickstarter is it. Okay?
But Kickstarter is, you've been saying Kickstarter is crowded. Is there
No, it's not. I'm sorry. So now we're suffering for something. Crowdfunding of board games is crowded.
No, but we were saying
there's
there's
too
so
many
many
projects.
Kickstarter projects. It is.
Yeah,
Like you're talking about
There's no
out.
eyeballs on Indiegogo looking for board games.
Right,
So even if you go there, you're going to get so few eyeballs compared to Kickstarter, it's just not going to matter.
And that's why when you go out to eat, all the restaurants seem to be on the same street. That's when you go to buy a car. All the car dealers, serious, is that they know that they're competing with each other, but it's easier if they all are in the same spot, that they'll get the eyeballs from everybody. And it's kind of the same thing on Kickstarter. You're not going to find some hidden group of people who suddenly stumbled on your project, unless you go somewhere really unique. For example, for Teal to take his game to a trade show about bird watching, he'd kill it because there's nobody else there. But he's got to now go do the research to find out these bird watching conventions.
And I know someone who does that.
Yes.
Albino Dragon does that. That's their business model.
Eric Dahlman?
Dahlman, yeah.
Yeah, he's got an interesting business model. Go ahead. Since I used to be his business partner, I'm not anymore. So go ahead, Chris.
To build on that, one thing I've noticed a lot is in my professional space is anime conventions also has a big crossover for board games that really isn't tapped into as much as it could be.
Talk to Eric Price, who does Crossmaster Arena.
Yep.
Yeah.
The man cleans up at those anime shows, money-wise.
And I mean,
They got him.
So that's a good point. It's going to these, like what Jeremy just brought up, going to places where your competitors aren't, but your customers are. Okay? Unfortunately, different crowdfunding platform's not it, but taking your game to these different places, boat shows if you've got a boating game, wedding shows if you got wedding music. There's just so many places. And here's what's happening. So kind of as a wrap up, what's happened with Kickstarter is that, are we in a glut? I mean, Aldo's used the term glut a couple of times. Are we about to hit the precipice and we're going to fall off and suddenly this thing's going to explode on us? They were saying that in October of 2001. When people were rushing into Kickstarter, and this is the year that they had 100 successful games because they were afraid that the bubble was about to burst. That was in 2011.
You said 2001.
Oh, sorry, 2011.
I was closer with 1 year ago.
You were. You were. So the point is that now what's happening is, and we're seeing it with the Onion that just did Exploding Kittens, right?
No, not the Onion, though.
Oatmeal, sorry. See, I'm getting it all wrong. The point is that a whole bunch of people just got introduced to the board gaming community on Kickstarter that didn't know about it before because of them. That's hundreds of thousands of people who now are really interested in, wow, I can find another game similar to this one, and I didn't even know that games like this existed.
Because it's not really a game.
I like this kitten game. Where can I go buy another cat game?
A number of backers for Birds of a Feather only had Exploding Kittens as their only other Kickstarter.
They've never done another Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So cats and birds. Just
Cats and birds. Yeah. So this is what's happening: is that the awareness of our industry, the board game industry, is just growing and growing and growing, and it's because of these projects out there that are tapping into weddings or birds or whatever, and it's bringing in a whole new group of people. And so whenever I hear that we're hitting a saturation point, and then I look at Exploding Kittens and see 1 million backers, right? It's like, no, we're not even close to the saturation point. Cards Against Humanity will end with them because they are such an outlier. When they sold their 4,000 copies of their game, Max, as he and I talked about it, he thought every person on the planet who wanted that game had that game. Okay, I was on the campus Berkeley at a crowdfunding conference, international crowdfunding conference. They don't consider Kickstarter part of the crowdfunding platform at this conference. It's all equity-based and that type of thing. And I was telling them about crowdfunding in the board game space, and they said, I don't believe you. I said, watch this. I had a Cards Against Humanity button on my suit in Berkeley. I stood out, okay? First of all, I had a suit on. And I'm talking to an attorney from New York. I said, watch this. A young woman walks by with a backpack. I stopped and I said, excuse me, can I ask you a question? I had a microphone and a camera. I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. Do you know what this button is? Have you heard against Cards Against Humanity? She said, yeah, I love that game. It's kind of like apples to apples. Okay, good point. I said, have you seen this button before? And she looked at my Cards Against Humanity button, and she just flipped out. Oh my gosh, where did you get that? Did you design the game? How can I get that? No, never mind, go away. Thank you very much. And I turned to the attorney, and he says, no, that was an anomaly. No, that was not an anomaly. Every single student that walked by, I could have done the exact same thing. My point to him was that he had no concept that crowdfunding had penetrated at a level where these guys are thinking it's all equity-based and it's all this stuff. That crowdfunding is bringing new people into the industry, particularly into the board game industry, and so I think it's going to continue to grow. Do you guys agree that it's going to continue to grow? Although you don't get to answer that. I want positive answer. Okay? Yeah. All right.
I just signed on a publish report. You hit my news feed today about growing again. About average about 20% a year. It's still growing.
It's still growing. And another platform to look at, Patreon, which I'm really enjoying for board game reviewers. Patreon's a monthly crowdfunding.
I backed Teal on there.
Yeah, so that's a great way to go take a look. All right, thank you very much, everybody, for your attention, and feel free to ask the panelists. Thank you very much.